Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey there, senior leaders. It's Alicia Cowan. Welcome. Episode number 60. Let's go. I want to give you a quick update. We've been busy the past couple of weeks. I've been back in town this week after a few weeks of travel. I went up to Atlanta to meet with a client. So shout out to the team at Get Engaged. I did a full day of leadership coaching with some of their leaders, and they're a really amazing team. And so we had a really good time talking about a bunch of different leadership topics. And just we had a full day session that just was so fun and really a good time. And then I had a personal portion of this trip. I got to meet with my coach, which was amazing, and have a great lunch. But also, my daughter was there for a cheer competition, so we did that for the weekend. And then I took off right from Atlanta to LA for work on a leadership program as well. So it was a back-to-back kind of long trip. So I've been back for a bit. And then we're off again this weekend. So as I'm recording this, I'll be getting back from a trip to Dallas. So we're going to go to the NCAA cheer competition in Dallas. And luckily, we get to also meet up with a couple of friends there while we're in town. So lots of travel this spring. Luckily, the weather has been amazing in the Southeast, and we've had a decent spring, and it's just been beautiful. So everything's been going pretty good from that regard, but very definitely busy. I also, before we dive into today's topic, I do want to give a shout out to one of my listeners and clients. She recently took on a VP role, and we started working together because she's so experienced. She's lovely. She's great at her job. She's just a joy to work with. But she got elevated to this new role, and she really wanted a really great onboarding plan. So before she started the role, she wanted to come in with a plan of attack and just to be ready to take on this bigger role in an expanded scope. And what's great is she's been off to the races, and she has had a killer first impression, and she's taken on a lot. And what's great is she already has an expanded scope, and she's got a lot of extra responsibilities that have been handed to her just because I think she came in with such a great energy and just being a great leader that she is. And so I just want to say congratulations to her for really just starting off with such a great leadership presence there. So well done, ma'am. So that brings me to my topic. We're going to talk about delivering feedback and having tough conversations with high performers. And I want to talk about specifically giving feedback to top talent, because what I see a lot of is leaders avoiding this, or maybe not avoiding is the wrong word. Maybe it's too strong of a word to say avoid, but maybe not delivering feedback and not giving feedback to top talent, because a lot of times they just believe they're doing so well and doing everything right already. So why add additional feedback or give them additional feedback when they just need to keep going? And so I want to share, I've talked to a lot of top talent. In my line of work, I'm super lucky that I get to engage with leaders that are top of their game and doing really well, but I'll still have a boss of some sort. And I talk to them a lot about where they're headed and their goals and what they're working on. And what I hear a lot is that they do want to know where they stand. They have high aspirations. And at times, they're not getting all of the support and development and feedback that they need. And I believe that maybe overlooked is the best word to use here. I think a lot of times, because they're doing so well, they get overlooked. Maybe. And again, not overlooked from a sense of no one pays attention to the top talent or they're high performing. I think leaders know that, but maybe overlooked in their development needs, because at times, sometimes we shift our focus into people that need more of it and have more obvious skill gaps that we can contribute to as senior leaders. So I think this group is crucial. And usually this group is highly contributing and bringing a lot to the table. And so if you've ever either hesitated, avoided, or overlooked, whatever that word is that you want to use there, if you ever hesitated in this to give feedback to a high performer, or I always frame this, if you have somebody on your team that is doing this as well, this episode is for you to listen in on. Thing that I sometimes hear is this mindset of this high performer, this top talent is already doing really well. And what else can I possibly add here? And I think there's this misconception that high performers and top talent don't need, or maybe they just don't want feedback. And other times I also hear sometimes self-doubt will creep in, or like maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome when you're leading someone that is top talent. And sometimes leaders say something to the effect of, this person is actually more experienced in this area, or maybe they're smarter than me, or maybe they're more tenured or just more of an expert in this specific arena, right? Because as senior leaders, a lot of times you are leading for a reason. And that reason is not because you're a subject matter expert every part of the organization. A lot of times you're leading because you are the capable leader. Leadership skills and leaders of people and leaders of large teams of people can be a very different skill set than a subject matter expert. And so sometimes this will hold people back, right? So whatever they are more than me, and I am not enough to give them feedback, holds people back at times. Again, this isn't all the time, but sometimes these are some of the things that I hear. And so what can happen here, and why, when leaders avoid giving feedback, there is this risk. What it puts at risk is if you neglect this feedback, people can get disengaged. A lot of times I've heard top talent and these leaders just really start to check out because they're like, I don't necessarily know exactly where I stand. I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know where I am in relation to my goals. And I don't even know if I can even get there or not. And so in turn, it leads to disengagement. Sometimes these associates also need like a gold star, like a pat on the back, like encouragement. And so they get disengaged. If they're used to being a top talent, top performer, and they don't get recognition for that, they also can get disenfranchised with the whole thing. And then this can turn and like take a turn into complacency. I think a lot of times we hear the like quiet quitting phenomenon and we just assume that people are lazy or they just don't want to work. And that's why we end up in this quiet quitting phenomenon. But I think at times we can also have people that potentially have been high performers, top talent, that get used to being piled on lots of responsibility, lots of work, and they get more and more and more. But to the point, if they don't get the feedback and they don't get recognition and they don't get movement and they end up, continuing just to do the work anyway, I think they can start to like feel that as they're carrying some of this weight on their back, and then other people are not performing at the same level or, doing the same things that they're doing. And then they all are kind of looked at equally. They're not getting recognition or feedback or any of that. And so it just takes a turn and they go into complacency, AKA quiet quitting, where they pull back. And they're like, well, why would I do any of this? Why would I put any extra effort in if no one is going to notice? And then ultimately, this disengagement and then complacency can also lead to turnover. And so the person can decide, this is not the place for me over the long term, and decide to exit. And so, again, I've seen all of this occur, and I've seen all of this in different stages. And the good news is this is all easily fixable. Okay, so by all means, definitely take notice and take stock of how not only your direct reports and are receiving and getting feedback, but also maybe how, again, as senior leaders and leaders of leaders, you might have people broader on the team that are not maybe getting all the recognition and feedback that they need. So just consider this. And then let's move on. Let's talk about the truth about these high performers and what they need from us. So here's the deal. High performers are super driven and they actually thrive on feedback. They truly want to know like how they're doing, what they can work on and improve, and then what's next for them. typically they have goals and they have big goals and they want to know where they're headed. They want to know how you did it as a senior leader. They want to know what you have in store for them and what's next. They want to know what the next challenge is. And the importance that you have in playing this role is to help keep them engaged by challenging them appropriately. And as a leader, the role that you play is not to come in and dictate and micromanage, but you are absolutely supporting and facilitating their growth. And so a lot of times what I see is people get stuck and they're talking about this top talent or high performer, and they're like, okay, they're doing all of these things so great. They don't have a lot of area in which they can be more proficient in their current role. And so one powerful question that I like to ask is, I'll ask the leader, well, let's just assume that we elevated them today. Where would they maybe be challenged, or where would they struggle if they just got elevated today and had to take on a bigger role, a bigger span, a bigger scope, whatever that would look like in terms of promotion? Where would they still have a gap? That question usually starts to unlock things for people, and they start to say, oh, well, they would need support with this, or they would need to learn this, or they would have a gap here. And that's the area that now you can work on in their role today. Now, I want to give a caveat here. That doesn't mean you necessarily give them that responsibility to do that thing, but you can teach and train them on how to prepare and get ready for that skill. Okay. So there is a difference between delegating that responsibility and handing it off and teaching and training them, of course. So I want to give that little nuanced nugget in there. But I think about that. And I think if you have somebody that's stuck, again, that whether this is you or somebody on your team, ask that question. If this person moved on and we needed to elevate them, what would we need for them to learn quickly? And that will typically illuminate where they might have some gaps. So then we can move on to talk about how to deliver that feedback that will help them with that growth. So again, I know I have talked a lot about delivering feedback in the past couple of podcast episodes. So let's talk about how to deliver feedback specifically for this top talent or high performer. And the mindset shift here for this group of people is that the feedback is more set up for future focus and this growth tool, not like a criticism of like current performance or work. And so when you're talking to this person specifically, you want to talk about where they are winning. Again, this top talent loves to hear about performance. They want to know what they're doing well. So let them know clearly what's working, and then be clear as well. Where is there room for improvement? Where is your growth areas? And again, this is less about maybe current role or current day, but it's like, hey, if we were to elevate you, or when we see the future for you, there is still room for improvement to get you to that next level. And let's talk about that specific area. And so this is more about challenging them, not discouraging them. So some language you could possibly use here is like, here's an area that could take you from being great in this area to truly exceptional in this area. So something as simple as that language switch can help you out. And then really, this person is typically highly intelligent, typically super engaged. So you want to make this a two-way conversation and not a monologue. So you can ask, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this? Where do you think you could be doing this better? Okay, keep it simple. And then tie that feedback back to their overall goals. You should know where this person wants to be in their career and what they ultimately want to achieve. You can talk about, okay, will this help you as you head to that next level? As we are on the path to achieving that goal, what do you think about how this ties in? Okay. And like I said, I've heard this go really well. I had a leader that was managing a top talent performer, and they were really struggling. They were like, I understand when someone's not doing well, how to like be super clear. But this person that I feel like is maybe more experienced in this area, and I'm not really sure. We really worked through that question of like, okay, if they were elevated, what do they need to know? And when we went there, there were so many areas where executive presentation and putting a strategy together for the department and all of these things came up, right? And that leader was able to articulate a very clear area of feedback and then a very clear plan for this leader that helped them in escalating them to basically be their number two through this route of feedback. And again, the person was motivated and excited by it. They weren't taken aback or upset about it. They were really excited because they actually had a clear plan, and they were ready to take on the next challenge. And ultimately, of course, it helped the senior leader do their job better because they had somebody that was really highly capable, that was their right hand. Okay. All right. So the impact of this feedback. The impact of meaningful feedback is it really helps unlock an even greater potential in their top talent. So again, I can't encourage you enough. If you really think about, if you've ever heard of the Pareto principle and the 80-20 rule, ultimately, most of your results are probably coming from this group of top talent. So meaning like the 20%, the top 20% of high performers are probably producing a majority of results and a majority of the impact on the organization. And so if you are super clear with this group in leading and improving this group through feedback, there's going to be this massive ripple effect. These high performers, they set the tone and the pace for the rest of the team. There are massive retention and engagement benefits. And then if you really want to build this culture of excellence with your team, it starts with how you support your best people. And do not hear me wrong. I'm not saying that we neglect anybody else on the team. That is not what this podcast is all about. But it's to say, if you are by any chance neglecting and giving feedback to the top talent because they might be overlooked because of how well they're doing, just consider it. Are we paying enough attention to them and giving them what they need in addition to the other people on the team? Because again, sometimes we shift our focus to people that need more support and are more obvious about needing support with their development. Okay. All right. So here's my recap for you today. Giving feedback to these high performers, it's not about fixing anything that's going wrong or fixing them. They are doing great as they are, but it is about, it's fuel for their success. And so my challenge to you, think about a top performer on your team, and maybe it is your broader team if it's not within your direct reports, and find out, are they getting constructive, thoughtful feedback, whether that's from you or whether that is from your direct report. Make sure that they're getting what they need, encouragement, goal setting, great development on their skill gaps. And if you want to refine your approach to this, or if you need some support for people on your team to deliver amazing feedback to top talent, you want to think about how you approach leadership, please, let's talk about it. You can reach out for an executive coaching session with me. I'm happy to talk through this topic or any other ones that you want to talk through. It is one of my favorite things, and I get so excited about it. So you can reach out to me very easily through my website. It's EliciaCowanCoaching.com. It's ElisiaKeown coaching.com. And until next time, I so appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you so soon. I'll let you know how it goes in Dallas. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.